After surviving cancer for 16 years, countless operations and invasive treatments, young Tasmanian lawyer Sandy Duncanson succumbed to the disease in June last year. In a career spanning less than a decade, though, he made a significant impact. Many who knew him have come together and created the Sandy Duncanson Social Justice Fund. They're aiming to raise $60,000 so that his commitment to others will be recognised with an annual grant awarded in his honour. Not many have to contend with a wedding, a death and a pregnancy in quick succession.
We were married on the 19th and he passed away on the 25th of June. It was incredible that he was able to enjoy the day so much, and also the days after the wedding as well.
About 5 years ago, Sandy Duncanson and Mezzy Wilson began their short romance. The pair were keen bike riders, and although Sandy had been battling cancer for years, he'd seemed to overcome every hurdle and lead a normal life.
I think we had about 6 weeks together before he had his routine checkup, and that's when we found out that his cancer had got a lot worse. And that was a bit of a decision point, really, because we'd only been together for 6 weeks. But really, looking back, I'd made my decision that I wanted to be with him.
About a year into the relationship, the subject of children came up.
I remember actually we were driving in the car and Sandy said to me, "Would you like to have children?" And I hadn't really thought a lot about it before then. And I thought, oh yeah, I would like to have children. And he said, oh, would you have children? Would you have children with me? And I said, yeah. It was a really nice moment.
Because of Sandy's cancer treatments, the couple knew it would mean IVF. On the 6th attempt, Mezzy got pregnant. And when did you find out you were pregnant?
2 weeks after Sandy passed away. The transfer was 2 days before.
Iris Duncanson was born just over 4 weeks ago. While she won't know her father, Iris will grow up to know what he stood for.
He was incredibly dedicated to work. He really was. Even when he was very unwell and having trouble getting around the house without an oxygen machine and, a lot of trouble breathing, he still went into work, and even though he had to tackle the stairs and stop halfway up the stairs and take an oxygen machine in with him, he was, very devoted to work.
Sandy Duncanson was the principal solicitor for Tasmania's Tenants' Union when he died at the age of 37 last June.
He's turned the Tenants' Union into a really strong organisation, both as an advocacy and a reform agency. He was instrumental in a lot of initiatives like the Private Residential Tenancy Support Service and the campaign at recognition of housing as a human right was a really significant issue. So Sandy did a lot of really good work in the time he was in the community legal sector.
Jess Feely and Sandy began their professional careers around the same time in the challenging world of community legal work.
Sandy was a really close friend, and as I said, and someone that I relied on a lot for support professionally and personally, and his loss will be felt again both professionally and personally for many, many years.
The first essay is now back at reception.
Well, I've taught over 20 years and probably over 4,000 odd law students in that period of time, and there's always a small number each year that kind of come to your attention.
Sandy Duncanson was one such student.
I think he set an example of caring. I think he set an example of giving a damn about particular marginalised groups.
Sandy was principally responsible for a big campaign pushing for a Charter of Human Rights, and for that charter to recognise housing and adequate housing as a human right. The week before he passed away last year, it was announced by the Tasmanian government that they would be introducing a charter, and that it would be a progressive charter that did include social economic rights like adequate housing.
He would be upset with the current government for curtailing and putting that on ice because of budgetary considerations.
Rick Snell from the University of Tasmania's Law School has been coordinating what family and friends think will be a fitting tribute. A social justice bursary for undergraduates and recent graduates of the University of Tasmania is being established to continue his commitment. It'll combine with an annual memorial lecture. The first speaker to launch the fund next month will be former High Court Judge Michael Kirby.
It's a coming together of two very different stories. Michael Kirby's had a rich and fulfilling life and a long life to be able to make his contributions to social justice, whereas Sandy didn't have that opportunity. But this fund will give that prospect to be able to be undertaken.
Former partner Bev Jefferson got to know Sandy when they were students together. She says a firm commitment to university politics never dispelled his sense of humour.
Sandy decided that he was going to run for election and he was going to be a superhero, and this superhero was going to fight for free education. And so he did the whole campaign with his underpants on the outside and wearing a red cape, and he scored a landslide victory and was voted into the SRC.
It carried over into his professional life, where he coordinated colourful campaigns to highlight the need for affordable housing in Tasmania.
At the moment we do have a housing crisis in Tasmania.
It was during a self-funded trip to Woomera Detention Centre as a law student. Ms Jefferson says Sandy cemented his focus.
In particular, refugee children who were imprisoned at Woomera. That changed him. It made him focus his anger in a particular way. Refugees are forced to flee their homes and find a new one. Tenants can't afford to buy their own home, but they make their home where they rent, and they should have decent and good homes. And those two things, like people being allowed to have a home and people being allowed to make a new home in a new country, were very important to Sandy.
The bursary is not about rewarding high academic achievers, but to encourage students to focus on social justice and continue Sandy Duncanson's legacy.
That's one of the major things I like this fund to be able to get across, especially to my law students, is that the law is a two-edged sword. It can liberate and it can help people, but it can also marginalise and squash people involved in that process.
I think it's the perfect way to remember him, really, and I think that it's going to provide an opportunity for so many people over the years.